Well, welcome in. My name is Emma Gaquin, and you'll be experiencing streamlining your customers' buying experience, the power of guided configurators and 3D visualization today. I wanted to give us a couple of housekeeping notes before we got going. If you have any questions that come up during today's webinar, please drop those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'll sift through them and hand some over to our panelists at the end during the Q&A section. If you have any more nuanced questions or ones that are specific to your business, feel free to drop those in as well, and I can follow up with you after offline. Also to note, this webinar is being recorded and shared in your inboxes in the next 24 to 48 hours, so you can rewatch any highlights that you feel like you missed, and you'll be able to share it with your colleagues. And without further ado, we have an exciting lineup of speakers who are experts in their respective fields. We will be chatting through the major manufacturing go-to-market challenges that you're seeing today, how Logic solves for those challenges, how CDS solves for those challenges, and then StormTrap will be giving us a frictionless view on their designing process with CDS and Logic. First, we have Christopher Schutz, CEO and co-founder of Logic.io. We'll be discussing the benefits of using a guided product configurator in today's market. Then we'll have John Major, who's the general manager at CDS Visual. They'll be discussing the importance of 3D visualization in today's selling process and how manufacturers in similar industries are using that tech today. And then to bring the whole story together, we'll be hearing from Katie Friend, process development at StormTrap, who will share how her company has partnered with Logic.io and CDS Visualization to streamline their RFP process and their customer buying experience. Chris, I will hand it over to you.
Cool, thanks Emma, and thanks John and Katie for joining us today on this webinar. StormTrap is a really interesting business, and I think you'll find the way we're applying these technologies to Katie's complexities and challenges will be very interesting. What I want to do to start things off to talk a little bit about Logic.io and some of the challenges that we're seeing with the manufacturing companies like StormTrap that we work with. And a couple of things we're seeing from our from prospects we talk to and customers about our technology. One is that their end customers are expecting a lot more from their product offerings. So a lot of these manufacturers traditionally have been challenged with selling, bags of parts or collections of parts or components, but now their customers want them to actually create complete solutions to fit a very complex problem and then be able to find those solutions very easily. And in many cases, actually do that with a form of self-service. And as Katie will talk about, StormTrap services a wide variety of different kind of users in this respect, from engineers to owners to developers. And one of the challenges they had is they wanted their customers to be able to go to StormTrap, do a lot of self-discovery of their product offering, generate their own drawings, immediately on demand if they wanted to, and then get the answers they needed very, very quickly for a pretty complex engineering problem, as you'll see here in a minute. And that's a challenge we're seeing across virtually all the manufacturers that we're working with. And customers, their customers for these manufacturers are also wanting the buying experience to be very fast, very efficient, all the communication to happen one time and be correct, and have it be a very streamlined buying experience. And that's just merely an expectation that we're seeing across all the buyers that use Logic.io and CDS products, where our buying behavior for all of our personal buying, like on Amazon, is we expect an Amazon-like experience everywhere. And that expectation is moving into a lot of business applications that people work with. And then the last thing is that the market, over time, all products to a certain extent become commoditized. And that is forcing manufacturers to have to grow a lot smarter as everything gets a lot more competitive. And the velocity of all these deals is going much, much faster. So there's a lot of challenges for kind of the modern day manufacturer that's making complex engineered products like StormTrap. And that what this does is this puts manufacturers into kind of a tricky situation where, on the one hand, they can choose to not address these challenging buying needs and personas that are before them. But over time, then the businesses will essentially become marginalized. And then the other option, prior to CDS and Logic IO, is that you could spend a lot of capital and build a very highly customized solutions. And some companies, like Tesla and Apple, have done that in some cases for, cases where you have, or even Dell is a good example, where you have to configure a complex product and you can custom build. But it's very difficult to do that if you're not at scale, like a several billion-dollar company. And even in those cases, those solutions are relatively imperfect when you do a custom build. So it's a really challenging situation that a lot of these companies are put in. And, the other things with kind of the legacy technologies out there, CPQ is an industry that's been around for about 20 years now, as well as CAD and visualization is evolving, pretty quickly. But the challenge that sits before a lot of these companies, in addition to that, is that, complex configuration is a very difficult thing to do well. And even in cases where you can have a complex configurator to work well for a situation, it becomes very untenable in terms of maintenance and then performance. And when you get into, back to this very high expectation buyer persona that we address, if you have issues with performance and usability, those buyer personas ultimately won't use the application really in any form to do that. And so it's a challenge to get the configuration models and the maintenance of them correct. And then the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of these manufacturers, they want to define their configuration model one time, and then they want to syndicate that out throughout the organization. So they want to put it on their website. They want to put it potentially in an e-commerce experience. They might want to put it into a service experience, and they want to define all of those rules in one place. And most of the modern or previous generation CPQ tools can't do that concept of omnichannel and headless applications very easily. And then the last thing is that a lot of these existing CPQ tools are point solutions. They're really data islands, and they rely on complex integration processes to put all the data into a CPQ tool when it's really stored in other places like your CRM tool and your ERP system. So there's a lot of legacy technology challenges that these manufacturers are facing. And so what we've done with CDS is we built a combined app that allows our customers to do advanced configuration and then real time actually visualize the results of that configuration in the experience. And then at the end of the process, generate CAD drawings and basically provide your customers everything they need to fully fulfill their requirements in the solution. So it's an out of the box integration. The customers don't have to do the technical wiring between the apps to do that. And it creates a seamless buying experience with complex configuration and visualization. And you can syndicate this across all of your channels, whether it's a direct sales rep experience, an e-commerce experience, et cetera. And just a little bit of background on our company, Logic IO. So two of the founders of this business, myself, and then a guy named Godard Abel, and he and I actually founded Big Machines together back in 2000, prior to the CPQ space really being developed. And then we sold that business to Oracle in 2013. And then meanwhile, Godard had purchased SteelBrick and then eventually sold that to Salesforce. And then we were both retired from the CPQ space for several years. And then we decided to form this business because we are seeing this challenges to these manufacturers where it's very difficult for them, even with the existing CPQ tools, to meet all these changes in buyer personas that are happening in the marketplace. And that was part of the foundation of creating this business, Logic IO. And what's really different about this, because you might be asking why does the world need another configurator? And there's several things that we did in this application that's very unique to this technology, and it's some of the things that StormTrap is actually getting a lot of benefit from for their business. The first is it's an advanced solving engine or logic engine, and what this does is this allows us to do things that might take 10 seconds, 20 seconds in other configuration tools. We're doing those in 20 to 50 milliseconds. So when you have page updates and configuration updates that quickly, it allows you to completely change the interaction experience that your users have with the tool. So concepts of save buttons, there's no save buttons, there's no update buttons, there's no processing dialog boxes you might see as an overlay in the middle of the screen. All of those things go away. And what it does is it allows your users, whether it's a rep or an end customer, to be able to do a lot of their own self-discovery and very quickly iterate between options of your solution, which is something that they wouldn't be able to do normally with, waiting 10 seconds for an update to do those things. So there's a whole new level of interacting with it that I like to think of it as almost like a video game when you're using the application. And that allows you to really leverage a lot of interesting selling experiences and grow your average order value in those cases. We also took a fresh look at administration of the tool, which is one of the things that typically creates a lot of challenges with product configurators. We went to a visual rule management system. We built in a technology we call Flight Path, which allows you to see the rules engine processing real time and see how the rules are interacting with each other and how the calculations are being done. And it's a visual diagnostic. It's almost like a circulatory system of how the configurator is running to let you see exactly how your rules are working. And then we found that to be critical when you have lots and lots of rules and as these models get more and more evolved over time. And then the last thing we did, which we call kind of extend to anywhere, we made this a headless technology. So what that means is you can put it into any experience you want throughout your company, and you can use the UI that we ship the tool with, or you can build a completely, specific to your use case UI that you can put on top of the tool and make it look like any type of blended experience that maybe matches your corporate website, or maybe you create a specific portal for a very large customer of yours that has their branding on it, things like that. And we really put a lot of effort into the API layer in this headless architecture to make it easy to extend into those situations. And one of the things that we're seeing with a lot of our customers is that they're taking this UI to the next level, putting in a lot of different images, diagrams, guided messages, things like that, to make it very simple for their customers to see how the configurator works for all these different instances of their use cases. So with that, I'll turn it over to John for the background on CDS.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Good to meet you all. I founded CDS Visual in 2005, really with the realization, having done similar work previous to that, that the need really wasn't being met for visualization in this highly complex configuration environment, right? We started off as delivering just CAD geometry for industrial suppliers and quickly transformed into a pure visualization play supporting CPQ and commerce, okay? We're headquartered in San Jose. We currently we have here 10,000 visualizations per month, so it's a large system, all running in the cloud, of course, and all multi-tenant. We partner with CPQ and commerce platforms primarily in order to deliver, real-time visualization. So you might think about something like the wheel on a car at a car configurator. You want to see the 4-spoke wheel and the 5-spoke wheel. So we're the guys that are changing that wheel real time, and that data is coming from CPQ. In the case of StormTrap and other cases, it can move a little bit differently because the complex configurations come into play that are much more complex than just swapping out a part here and there. Just a final on this slide, we were acquired by Dover about 20 months ago, and they've been putting a lot into the platform. So we really have 3 main tenets of CDS. We're going to talk about the top one only today, but I just mentioned that beyond CDS vision, CPQ and commerce visualization, we have immersive learning, all based on 3D. We have aftermarket spare parts, all based on both 3D and 2D there. But here we're going to talk today about CTO, configure to order, and engineer to order. So really complex challenges, right, for for manufacturers and how do they get to their customers and how to make it easy for their customers to use their tools and to have their internal sales team use their tools. So we're not a CPQ company. We always are attached to one to offer visualization. Move to the next slide. So what happens, right, when you use visualization added onto a CPQ or commerce platform? We've seen just large changes in how our customers' volume increases, things like 30% increase in quotes, and conversions are very, very high compared to having no visualization. We integrate with various CPQ platforms, but we're here with Salesforce, which we think is with Logic, because Logic came in to help solve the problem of configuration at Salesforce. This is really the strongest play that we've seen. So today we'll talk a little about visual configuration, how engineer to order is interesting in that it's difficult for the CPQ engine to allow you to say move a window in a placement of a wall, or stretch something all in real time, or place something in a room. These are the kind of things that CDS can do in conjunction with CPQ. So CPQ takes you so far, and then you need this visual aspect, because how do you define, if you're laying out, objects sitting in a room, how do you define where it is without some type of visual tool that you can grab it and just drag it to where you need it, okay? And then have it react and do things. And in the case of StormTrap, I'll talk about, we have a very similar client, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail so you get an idea of the kind of things that we're producing, right? But out of our I'll kind of touch on the second one a little bit when I get to the other slides, but primarily here we're talking about getting real-time data back to CPQ that's difficult for them to get without visualization, okay? And then what our specialty is really, if you go up just back to the previous slide for 1 second, if you notice the middle, it says leveraging our existing CAD assets. So CDS is really all about, wherever possible, using those CAD assets that are typically locked up in the engineering environment. We're trying to get those out to the rest of the enterprise. We like to think about like unleashing CAD assets. So in almost every case, we're using existing geometry, converting that geometry to web-enabled or AR-enabled visualization. Okay, so we're converting these CAD to very lightweight visualization models and being able to interact with those in a 3D environment. Okay, you can go next. This is an example here of when one of our joint partners, our customers, you're talking about here, you're moving doors around, you're moving windows around. It makes it very difficult to handle that. In CPQ, you'd have to say, okay, from this corner of the wall, where would I place the door? Where would I place the window? How far are the purlins apart? So you can do all this in a visual environment and then send data back as necessary back to CPQ to augment the data that they've already gathered as part of the CPQ process. So I think you can go probably to the next slide. So in this example here, which I'm going to show a couple of examples, this is company called KPS Global. And what they make is, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, is they make these refrigerated rooms. And you'll see these, the one here is very small, but you'll see these at Costco and Walmart. You might walk into them, you might open the door and grab stuff out of them. And what they do is they make this from 48-inch wide steel comes into their plant, and they make 47-inch wide panels. And you can kind of see them in this room here. But down on the panel, you can see the lines, and those lines are 47 inches wide apart. So they build this wall, they fill it with foam, and then they ship it out to Costco or Walmart to be built inside the room. And they're all connected together with cam locks, and there's a ceiling on it, there's floors on them, and so on and so forth. So what we do is CPQ takes you so far, and then you have to be able to visualize. And that's the top view here, is you're actually dragging your mouse around in order to create the room in the exact size you want. You're putting in doors where you want them. You're putting in chamfers or any other type of feature. And the output of that, right, is what CDS, so we're allowing this input. So it goes from CPQ drop downs in inputting data to a real visual experience. And then the output of that, it's really hard to see, but each little line in that drawing is actually a panel. And they have this level of panelization rules. And this is very similar to the challenge we had with StormTrap. They're making these water units that trap water and help you, Katie will talk about it more, but what we really do there is they have a very specific configuration of the StormTrap units, and they're based on a set of rules that we can then help people build and visualize. So they can upload a file, they can see the background of what they're trying to go on, they can build their system right on top of this background image, all scaled, and then get out data about where every part is placed. And Katie will talk about that more, but it's very similar here. So if you look at this, there's a couple PDFs here I want to share, just some of the outputs that we get. So if you hit that PDF one, so basically they draw that in that environment on the other screen. And then if you just scroll down here, this is a submittal document. It shows where every panel is, where every door is. You can continue on down and just get a glimpse of what's going on here. So it shows every location of every panel and so on and so forth. So you can just quickly scroll down. You see the layout. There's 2 rooms in that design, so you're seeing 2 different line items. The next PDF is going to show the actual production drawings. This is a door production drawing. So beyond just the submittal for KPS, beyond the submittal document, which goes in the quote, gets attached to the CPQ quote. So we're actually creating the production drawings that are being used to create the individual components. Okay. And finally, and this all happens, really very, very quickly, is at the end of, looks like we have the same one there. Did that other one come up? We not test the.
I think that didn't come through. So
That didn't come through. So what I had there to show was an Excel document showing just the bill of material that gets pushed out of this, that then gets back to CPQ to augment their BOM that they've created. So very interactive, very fluid, engineer to order situations, right? And that's exactly what CDS does. I think, did I have any other slides, or is that it? I think that's it. Thank you. Look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks so much, John and Chris. Just to kind of preface what StormTrap does to give you a better idea of kind of how we're using the system and the ways that we're hoping to deliver some better customer interaction points, is StormTrap offers solutions for managing runoff, protecting water days, and really improving the use of property. And so we're committed to providing cost-effective, customized stormwater management solutions to engineers, owners, and municipalities. And our products really create solutions for detention, retention, water quality, and water harvesting. And then we have designs that can reduce footprint, accommodate site constraints, lower overall costs, and really meet project needs. So with this, really the purpose of the project, if you want to go to the next slide, Emma, thank you, is to extend that design capability to our customers. So we want them to have the ability to interact with our solution more, as well as create that option for self-service if they prefer to interact with us in that capacity. So really extending and furthering our customer centricity goals, as well as allowing them the ability to generate real-time preliminary drawing deliverables. So as John said, we need the ability to provide both AutoCAD drawing outputs and PDFs to our customers, and then also the AutoCAD drawings in order to further in the design process as we continue with the project. And so constructing a tool where customers have the ability to configure their own stormwater and water quality solutions without limiting our modular design was really paramount in the project. And then we also wanted to focus on generating efficiencies for our internal design team. Right now, all of our design is in-house. And so providing efficiencies both for them and our customer was really important when we were evaluating solutions for our project. And then alongside this, we want to architect intuitive processes that integrate this new tool with our existing Salesforce data and structure. and really developing a scalable solution while minimizing administration and duplicate data. So when we first started looking for potential partners through this, we did a very extensive RFP process, and we evaluated custom development options and solutions powered by software. And like Chris said earlier, the streamlined development and integration into the Salesforce CRM that we already use made the solution a great choice for us, as well as minimizing the administration that was going to be needed as we continue to grow and scale our business and this tool in general. And the Logic.io and CDS solution was actually recommended by 2 separate RFP submittals. So it was a very positive feedback regarding the solution in the way that we could meet our project needs and continue to innovate our internal process and further our initiatives to continue to improve from a technology standpoint. So specifically a little bit, our design, if you want to go to the next slide, is very modular. So this is an example of 2 typical configurations, and each one is customizable to specific site constraints. So we needed a tool that was as flexible and ability to customize as much as we can. And so Logic really, for their configurator side, is able to help us with all their ability to process information and all the different rules that we have in order to configure this properly per our requirements and also per the site constraints. So alongside this, like our internal quoting process is very manual. And so Logic is allowing us through that integration to Salesforce to streamline that process as well. And then to John's point earlier about our flexible and adaptable designs, some of these sites have different requirements that would require a cutout like you're seeing here, whether that is existing utilities, light pole foundations, landscape elements, or like other job considerations. We need to make sure our customers have the ability to navigate around those as needed. So to help with this, as John said, CDS is allowing us to upload background images, such as like a utility grading plan or engineering documentation. And so they're able to visualize the system on top of that plan and kind of build the foundation or the system layout outside the constraints that are being met. And that's how you can get a flexible and adaptable design, such as this one. And then alongside our detention needs and retention needs, which were the designs you saw previously, we also have treatment-based solutions that are focused on our water quality-based product lines and solutions to treat water alongside just like containing it. And so we needed a system that was able to accommodate not only our quantity designs, but also our water quality designs. So that's our SiteSaver, TrashTrap, and Storm Settler products. And both Logic and CDS are allowing us and flexible enough to take all of those rules that not just our quantity products have, but our quality products have, and generate those real-time drawing deliverables, which in this case would be a PDF. So really fantastic solution for us that's integrating all of that technology to further both our customer needs and our internal needs.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all our panelists. I'd love to open the floor up for questions. I've had a couple come in. So the first from Tom is the CDS menu or the CPQ the source of truth? And can you manage one tool and will it manage the other? For example, I review one attribute in one tool and it auto changes in the other. Or is CDS automatically using the CPQ menu and attributes?
I can take that one, Emma. That's a good question. Thanks for the question, by the way. So the way we built the two solutions to work together, Logic.io, the configurator, actually manages the attributes and the values and all the relationships between those values. And then when the configuration model runs, we check that the attribution is correct. So there's no exclusions happening, constraints, and the attributes are being calculated correctly, like dimensional data, things like that. And then that's passed to CDS. And CDS takes those attribution values and runs them through the visualization engine to generate the images. So most of the rules and attribution work is all maintained and sourced in Logic.io. There are a couple of corner cases to that where CDS has some collision detection rules and things like that. If you're trying to move, like, let's say a manhole cover around, you don't want to put that in the middle of two walls of one of those concrete boxes and things. Some of that collision detection would be managed in CDS, but most of the attribution and rules are managed in Logic IO.
Awesome. Oh,
I
here,
can actually add on to that just a little bit too. So we have this concept of hard constraints versus soft constraints. So a hard constraint is something that would never change. And those can reside a lot of times on the CDS side. You don't need to put every, like Chris said, you wouldn't put a manhole in the middle of a wall. So those kind of constraints, we call hard constraints, can be managed on the CDS side because they're never going to change. But in general, right, like Chris said, the attribute data is coming all from Logic and being fed to CDS real time.
awesome. Thank you. And then a follow-up to that, or in a similar vein, are you creating pricing / live lead time for your customer, or do they submit a request to quote and then a salesperson is following up? Follow to that, do these turn into leads or opportunities in Salesforce? And I'll hand it off, but generally it depends on what you need.
Yeah, I think, Katie, this might be specific to your business, and I can talk about it more generally if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So our internal process, we would not provide budgetary information straight away. We are sending it, as you said, to our internal salesperson who will be verifying the amounts, ensuring that it's the most optimized price, and verifying the design that's created prior to providing that budgetary information, just based off of variance in a number of the bill of material items. And then we are creating to our Salesforce CRM opportunities and contacts, depending on who submitted the design.
Yeah, and we see that a lot, that, exactly what Katie's doing at StormTrap. We see that a lot with our customers that are, I'd say, more on the higher end of, almost like project engineering or complex engineering for their products. And there's still tremendous value in letting your customers do their own digital discovery of your products, learning about them, and then sending that into an inside sales team tool. And then at that point, that team has most of the data they need and they can respond very, very fast, which gives StormTrap a huge advantage. But more importantly, I think if you can allow your customers to do that self-discovery up front, they're going to have a higher propensity to use your products and services down the road. And I think all of us, like if we research like cars or anything like that online beforehand, and those companies give us a good experience doing that, we're more likely to buy those products. And that's part of the advantage that you can give yourself as a manufacturer in this case. And then I think what I've seen from my experience in doing work like this over the years, lead time is typically a challenge for companies, and the challenge for manufacturers is you often cannot pull lead time directly from an ERP system because it's typically won't actually process correctly for an engineer, for an ETO type product. And so what we've often done for our customers, if you want to present lead time immediately, we actually calculate lead time from a buildup of elements inside the configurator. So we know things like, welding takes a certain amount of time, painting takes a certain amount of time, assembly, and those times can vary based on what's in the bill of material. And then we can actually calculate like a pro forma lead time and put on the proposal immediately. And it's generally very, very close to what you would get actually running in MRP. And over time, your schedulers can update those data elements inside the configurator to drive that, more exactly.
Thanks, Chris. Another one from Kevin. Does Logic work the same way with Manufacturing Cloud as it would for core Sales Cloud CPQ? Can you talk through those differences? Back to Chris.
Yeah, I can do that. The answer is it works exactly the same. So we use the Salesforce, the core platform uses the same data model for what they call product to record. So there's no difference if you're running core CPQ or running Manufacturing Cloud as an add-on. However, with Manufacturing Cloud, you do get a lot of benefits around forecasting and demand planning, which would traditionally be more of a core ERP function, but now you can actually put that in your front end with Manufacturing Cloud, and it actually makes it a lot easier to address your customers' needs up front as you run the business. There's also a lot of other benefits to Manufacturing Cloud around customer price agreements, things like that. If you have that as part of your pricing and quoting process, and that would be a big benefit. But those are the nice thing about, Logic, Salesforce CPQ, Manufacturing Cloud. They're all very modular and they're designed to work together. And so the integration and the usability of them is the same, no matter what, permutation of those, those three products that you would have.
Awesome, thank you. Well, that is it for today's session. Again, thank you to everyone who joined. This recording will be shared out to you all. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly. I've provided my email, really simple, emma@logic.io. Special shout out to John from CDS Visualization and Katie from StormTrap for joining us today in their partnership. We hope you have a lovely rest of your day and great heading into the weekend.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye.